Hey guys, continuing Iamblichus' Exhortation to Philosophy, chapter 11. There's just a couple of lines there that I wanted to make a video on because I think they're very powerful. If you remember, we were talking here about having in this chapter about having a capacity and then using that capacity for something. So we talked about whether we have the sight or we use the sight to see things. The same way, whether we have a life. But Iamblichus mentions, for example, not in this part, but a little bit earlier on in this chapter, that both two men, we take two men, one man is asleep all the time, another one is very active. They both have a life, they're both alive, but one is using his life actively, and another one is sleeping. And the active one will be, assumably, will be more happy and will have a more pleasant life. And if we look at psychology research, this is proven. When they've done studies, psychologists have done studies of people who watch TV, for example, or do some kind of passive activity, as opposed to people who work. And they found that people who are active, their stress levels are lower and their enjoyment is higher, whatever the work they're doing, which is quite revolutionary. And it proves this point that we need to actively use something to derive usefulness and pleasure from it. Just to have something is not enough. Just to be alive is not enough if we want to have a happy life. We have to be active. And also in depression, in all the research around depression, we see this constantly. A depressed person stops their activity, they withdraw with more and more from the world, they become more and more depressed. As they become more and more active, their hormone levels start to increase, the positive hormones, the dopamine, serotonin, and so forth. They start to come out of depression. They feel much better. Again, these points are proven by modern psychology, by medicine, and so forth. So returning to this point, in this part, this is a really good part, I think. Iamblichus says there are essentially two types of men. One man will have a pleasant life, and another one will not have a pleasant life, or not as much. He says, if we are alive, and we just have occasional pleasures come to us in life, and some people might have more, some people might have less, this is not enough to have a pleasant life, or life will not be as pleasant as compared to this. It's if a man actively derives pleasure from life. So this is very different. So here, the human has actively learned to absorb pleasure from life, and he does so, and thus he has life. Here, the human just lives his life and awaits pleasures to come his way. The result, this one does not really have a pleasant life, this one has a pleasant life. Now my interpretation of this is like this. We see this very clearly. We take, for example, we take two people. I always like to compare the rich to the poor because I've had the experience of both being very rich and also being pretty poor. So it's very interesting for me to see how everything works in the mind and in psychology with that. And I've met extremely rich people because of my family connections, and also very poor people because of other half of my family connections. Criminals and so forth. So it's very interesting. So we see this, for example, a rich person will occasionally have pleasures come their way, and they may even have every day some kind of pleasure come their way. And it may look like they're happy, they're having a pleasant life. But they will be dependent on those pleasures. When the pleasures are not coming, they start to get agitated, frustrated, angry, and so forth. They're dependent on those pleasures. And often they need more and more extreme pleasures. And so we often see very rich people, we see perversions, we see all kinds of perversions taking place. And let's say we take a poor man, obviously not in all rich people, but just often we see this. Or at least people that I've been in contact with. So here we have, let's say, a poor person who doesn't have much. This poor person, if they learn to derive pleasure from life, they will be absorbing that pleasure from everything. They will wake up and think, oh, what a great thing it is that I'm physically healthy. and they'll derive pleasure from that thought and from that understanding, from that reason. They walk outside, they see the sun, they feel happy, they relax, they absorb the rays of the sun for a couple of seconds, and they feel grateful and happy for the warmth of the sun. They derive pleasure from that. They're walking, the wind is blowing, and so forth. If they have a cup of coffee, they enjoy the cup of coffee, they enjoy the mug, and so forth. It all depends on how much the person has learned to derive pleasure from life. How is this person deriving pleasure from life? How? Via reason. They're understanding something, and they're doing something that this person is not doing. Okay? So this is extremely important. There is a meaning involved. This is how I understand it. So Iamblichus is saying, that's my understanding of it, develop reason through philosophy so you can derive more pleasure from life. And it will automatically start to happen. The more you develop reason, the more wisdom is developed. And the more you start to do contemplations and such things as well. Not only from living the mundane life, doing whatever you're doing, but also from contemplating higher truths. As we get more and more into this, I think, in the later chapters. So, this is my take on this part of the text. So to sum up, here the person has learned to derive pleasure from life itself, rather than wait for life to give them something, as this person does. And there's two very different people. This person, as I understand it, is often very grateful. They are active, they seek, and they try to, to me, as I understand it, gratefulness is a big part of this. And we see this in psychotherapy research a lot as well. The gratefulness techniques, when a person teaches themselves to constantly be grateful for small things, and every day. They develop this habit. They do like gratefulness diaries, they record grateful things and so on. And this is an extremely powerful method, as psychotherapy research has found out. It takes people out of depression. It gives them a lot of energy, it gives them a lot of meaning and happiness. Because what is essentially happening with this method? A person has a life, whatever it is that they have, but they're trying to transform their reason, how they reason about life. They're transforming it in such a way that they're grateful for what they have. And so they're starting to derive pleasure from it. You see, it's a very different mentality than, let's say, this person who works in a different way, who reasons about life in a very different way. Often they complain, they say, oh, I don't have a big house, damn it. This person says, oh, I have a small apartment, I'm so happy that I have a roof above my head. This person enjoys this thought, this person hates it that they don't have a big house. This person happy that they have a roof, this person's unhappy that the roof is not big enough. You see, and this is just one little example, and the way the mind works, it will create a billion different reasons how to make you unhappy. If you have not trained your reason and your meaning to derive happiness from what is around you. So it's very important to develop this, to learn to derive pleasure from life. From however the small the moment might be. Develop gratitude. Gratitude, I think, is one of the incredible techniques to do this. And it will make your life more and more pleasant. And remember that there is no limit to pleasantness that you can experience from life. At first it's just calmness, then it's pleasant, for example, then it's ecstatic, and then you are starting to have realizations, insights, and so forth. And it goes higher and higher, and there's no limit. This is just my take on this side of things. Iamblichus does not say these things. So I'm trying to constantly repeat what I think and what Iamblichus said so that people have a clear understanding. They can just ignore what I say and focus on what Iamblichus said. Because that's essentially that's why we're here, to see what he said. Okay, so what is your take on this? Write in the commentaries below how you understand it. What insights and realizations this has caused you. Write in the comments below, and so we can all read and enjoy and contemplate it. That's it. Now I will do a little meditation. You can do any meditation you want. I normally do a little prayer at the end of these videos. So you can do any prayer you want. just to be grateful for the opportunity to study these things, that these texts exist, and that they have been translated, and we can access them. Okay. Now video will appear. Click on it and you can continue watching this channel.